Good morning to all of you. This is the third tech talk that we organize as La Comunicare Digitale about the digital content delivery transformation. We have a very great speakers ready to offer you a very interesting, relevant tech talk. As you see from England, but coming from Spain, Maria Rua Huete and a lot of people, and we are very happy to welcome two speakers, two female speakers, because as you know, boring all the male speakers during the roundtable. So good morning to all of you. I'm very happy to introduce you amazing speakers and content. Jorn Krieger, a very relevant journalist from Broadband TV News, introduce you the Tech Talk. I'm here just to say, have a good Tech Talk, apply your smile and energy and dynamic discussion during this pandemic crisis, because it's the best killer application ever during these days. I'm confident you offer a very great talk with a lot of people viewing you and expecting information, results, and video. So, starting the Tech Talk today.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Connect.
We're live. Thank you for joining today. There's a lot of talk going on about this discussion on social media, and I'm very happy for this. It means we've hit the right spot with this topic, obviously with the choice of speakers. A great number of high-profile people joining us today. We've got Karine Rischker, Director of Business Development, Software as a Service and Cloud at Harmonic. Welcome.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much for the invitation, Andrea.
Great to have you. The second female head, we've got Maria Rua Agued, Senior Research Director, TV Video Advertising at Omdia. Hello.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak today here.
Thank you. We've also got Steve Mill-Jones, Vice President of Edge Strategy and Solution Architecture at Limelight Networks.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm looking forward to a good discussion today.
Thank you. From Norway, we've got Geir Bjorndal, Vice President Sales Europe, Middle East and Africa at Verimetrics.
So hello, everyone. I'm really glad to be here today, and I'm looking forward to this discussion. I think it will be very interesting. So thank you.
Thank you. And we also have Per Lindgren, co-founder and CTO Media Networks at Net Insight. Hello, Per.
Hello, Jordan. Hello, everyone. Yeah, exciting times in the industry. So really looking forward to this discussion.
Absolutely. You've said it, exciting times, even in the crisis or because of the crisis or because of perhaps looking what happens after the crisis. All of this will be discussed in this 1 hour today. You are, of course, invited to submit your questions, and we will have a selection on screen and try to answer them as much as we can. The first question is a very general question affecting all of you. So I'm sure you have all great things to contribute. The question is, what's going on right now in the content delivery market? You're involved in all and some parts of this chain. Perhaps, Karine, you might give us a first introduction.
Yes, thank you for that. So at Harmonic now, we see that SaaS, software as a service, using public cloud and CDN is becoming a smarter choice for primary distribution. That means that you can leverage the cloud and CDN to perform tasks that are not suitable for satellite. And also, since a growing number of OTT platforms are running in the cloud now, our customers find that it makes sense to implement a cloud-based primary distribution solution.
Yes. And we're going to address the satellite question, which is very interesting in another question round. Now, Maria at Omdia, the research company, what's your view on the current development in the content delivery market?
Yes, thank you very much, John. And I think in order to answer the question, for the interest of the audience, I have 2 slides that if Andrea can show us the slides about total revenues according to Omdia and my media delivery team, we did a lot of research trying to quantify the value of the CDN revenues in 2019. And the total value in 2019 is $4.1 billion, $4.1 billion in revenue, of which SVOD accounts for 54% of that video CDN revenue. Very big percentage, more than 50% of those video revenues come from SVOD. And as we can see in this chart, a lot of growth will come in the next years also from AVOD and from virtual pay TV operators. Also in the next slide, after this one, is this one. You can see here we're expecting a lot of growth in the next 4 or 5 years. So from 2019, we set 4.1 billion in revenues. We're expecting in 2024 that figure to go up to 5.4 billion in revenues, 1.3 billion more than in 2019. Very big figure, very big growth, driven mainly by North America, followed by Europe. So big growth in the CDN markets, big growth in the online market, and we will discuss later from where do we see this growth coming from? Who are those top online services? Are they pay? Are they free? But really very healthy, very positive growth in the CDN market, as you can see in this chart.
Thank you. We can see this is not just a growing market. I think this is an exploding market, really. And there are lots of companies participating in this chain, and we're going to discuss that with some of the representatives, including Steve from Limelight Networks. What's your comment on the current situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a very peculiar year for a lot of people in terms of their social behavior. So, we do a report every year, which we call the State of Online Video, which looks at trends of consumption and behavior. I think I have a slide about that, my first slide, if that can just be put up. It's just some stats for people to look at while I speak. I think the really interesting pieces that have happened over this year during the sort of various challenges we've had around the globe with the lockdowns and so on is that we've seen an acceleration of this digital transformation in the workflow, because content has to come out to people digital first now. We've seen the change to OTT only releases or OTT first releases of long play movies. We've long seen that on some of the big subscription platforms, that they will launch an entire series at once, but we've seen that from a broader range of content now as well. And then if we look at what's happened in live streaming as people come back to sports or event-based streaming, the entire workflows have fundamentally needed to change in order to help the content producers still create the content and get it distributed to an audience which is now largely at home. And so I think there's a significant increase in all types of traffic, which then drives into where are users finding it, and going to search across the platforms that are online first rather than through my channel listing on my TV. I think that's a really interesting social dynamic that's changing, and it's driving behaviors in TV aggregation. It's driving behaviors in how many subscriptions I might have, and then it's also becoming evident that there is a significant maturity in things like the chipsets, the decoding in the device, the encoding of the content in high quality can now be matched with high quality decode in more and more devices. So I think there's some really interesting maturity points in the industry as well, which will then drive the next set of innovation as decentralization happens and more codecs are advanced and people are more interested in gaining higher and higher quality for effectively broadcast over the internet, where we can't get into the locations we used to be able to get to. So I think it's been a really interesting year, whilst very significantly challenging for a lot of people. I think it shows us how the industry is going to have an accelerated rate of change over the next couple of years.
Absolutely, and I do think what we can say is that the crisis has not changed the development. It has been there before. It has already started before the crisis. But what it has done is it has accelerated the development and obviously opened several new doors and opportunities for companies. And one of these companies involved in this is Verimetrics. Geir, how do you judge the current situation?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting situation for us who are engaged in protecting the revenue for the video makers and them, because until now, the majority of the revenue has been coming from broadcast, but now we see that we have a lot of premium content provided directly on OTT. And this gives new challenges to us as a security company to protect the content in new and different ways. So what we see is that also the studios who are now providing very premium content on OTT are looking into new security requirements on consumer electronics devices and to protect the OTT revenue. So for us, it's interesting to see this development, and it is, as I said, accelerating a little bit also the development and the rollout on the security side in the situation we have. And I do not think it will really be rolled back in the future. It's just a trend that we will see continue. So for us, it's really interesting times.
Yeah.
And to open new doors for the content providers is also something that we're trying to do.
Absolutely, that's good points that you've raised here. First, the example of Hollywood studios directly attracting the consumers with their premium movies, because obviously the situation at cinemas is far from best at the moment. And the second thing that you mentioned is that this is probably something that's going to stay, maybe in a dual track mode, whereas people following the crisis might not want to or might not be able to watch the movie in the cinema. They've got the option for to see it at home, but at a premium price, like say $20, $30, $40 perhaps. But this raises the question of security, because attractive content is what's pirated most, and so there need to be secure solutions in order to have a safe delivery of the content. Per, Net Insight, how do you see the situation?
Thanks, Jörn. And Net Insight is primarily engaged in the live content value chain. And of course, both as media professional and big sports fan, it's been a challenging year. So we're happy that finally most of the sports leagues are back up. And I think also the current situation, because of the pandemic, social distancing, has created the requirements of a lot of innovations in the whole delivery chain. And this goes both to the production, how do you produce perhaps more remotely, and into also how do you create the delivery, and when you have commentaries perhaps not being able even to be on the stadium. So a lot of innovations actually, and that's put a lot of requirements on the infrastructure and need for more agile workflows. And I think this in the end has, as you said, John, accelerated a lot of the trends we have discussed about moving to the cloud and moving to IP and more agile, more remote distributed workflows, both in the production and delivery workflows. So another thing, actually, what we have seen is, and I guess that's partly because the people being involved in more live sports have moved into live enterprise, and the need for enterprise where they can't gather a lot of people in their big events to go more online. So we see a big increase in enterprise streaming and the unification here in the delivery workflows between enterprise and more live events type of workflows. So that's interesting as well, I think.
Yes, and it's interesting to see that that's something you've all addressed, that this crisis has accelerated the development, and there are some people who say that this has actually pushed forward the development by about 3 to 5 years. So where we are now, under normal circumstances, we would have been maybe in 3, 4, or 5 years. The question 2 is addressing more the specific reactions of your companies to the crisis and challenges that we're facing. Karine, I want to start with you again, and we've got a little video you've prepared for us that we'd like to share with you.
Yes, this video is about the capability with the cloud to have some redundant solution for distributing the content, and it is true that the situation, the crisis, was an enabler for our customer to go to the cloud because they realize that it is quite easier to set up new services with the public cloud solution. So this video is a demo that shows how you can rely on cloud and how you can have a redundant solution with a live stream coming from two cloud platform in a seamless way.
Let's take a closer look at this in operation.
We have launched 2 VOS 360 instances, one on Google Cloud and one on Azure. Both instances are receiving the same live signal through Harmonic's secure, redundant CloudLink servers. And each instance is performing the same transcoding, encryption, packaging, and origin operations. A graphic is inserted for each instance so that we can easily identify which cloud the streams are coming from. Now we add dual CDN distribution to maximize availability. Under normal conditions, a user connected through Akamai will receive the Azure VOS 360 program, and the user connected through Limelight will receive the Google Cloud VOS 360 program.
The system will not always run perfectly. Let's see what happens if there is a failure somewhere in the system.
We shut down the Azure VOS 360 instance to simulate some form of dramatic failure. Both CDNs now start automatically pulling all segments from the remaining instance. Meanwhile, the end-user video keeps playing seamlessly. We can also switch back and forth between public clouds as well as running with both in parallel. As you can see, CDN, or cloud failover, is completely transparent for the end user.
Very interesting, because it addresses a question many people raise when they say, well, is everything now going towards the cloud? But how secure is the cloud? How secure is it, Karine?
Yeah, exactly. And what the key is to have a solution that is cloud agnostic. So that means that you can really deploy your solution on different cloud and increase the reliability of your solution. So if you are able to deploy your software as a service on Azure, Google, and AWS in a seamless way, then your service can be authenticated and could be redundant. And that's what we think the cloud is adding to our industry.
What are the benefits of the cloud regarding, let's say, the traditional delivery over satellite?
Oh yeah, regarding the difference between the satellite is that with the satellite it's quite difficult to have a redundant solution, and with the cloud you can decide that apparently I have an issue with the mic, so
yeah, it's a bit difficult to understand you. Maybe you can reposition the mic a bit more closer.
Yeah, I will. So yeah.
Good.
Please, John. I will continue later on. I will check my audio.
All right. Okay. Maria, we have a video prepared for you as well, and let's have a look at it. So let's play the video.
Thank you. Great video, yes.
All about Omdia in one video. So this leaves no more questions, I think, regarding the focus of your research company. And this is where I want to jump in, because we've discussed the CDN, we've discussed the cloud delivery, but let's discuss not just technology, let's also look at the content, because that's what the consumer is looking for. Nobody is ever interested in technology. It has to work, point. The content is what's relevant for the consumer. And we've seen from your slides a lot of growth happening. I said it's almost an explosion in video delivery over CDNs. Where do you think the growth is coming from? What are you expecting? Is it more from pay TV or is it more from subscription video on demand?
Yes, very good question. So as the video set in Omdia, we cover not only the side of the story, the technology behind all this. We have a great media delivery team, but we also, in my group, we analyze consumer behavior, consumer trends, what are they watching currently, and also we speak to service providers, to video providers, content owners, and I prepare for you some slides to highlight where growth comes from. This deck, you can see here, this slide, we updated it several times already this year, because in the beginning, we thought, around February, when I did my first presentation, we thought over the top will overpass pay TV in 2021. But due to the pandemic, due to people staying at home, we have to update our forecast because over the top subscriptions already overtook pay TV. So where is the growth coming in terms of new subscriptions, new additions? Growth comes from the online world. Growth comes from pay online subscriptions. So of course, in terms of revenues, pay TV is still the higher in terms of total revenues, but in terms of new subscribers, new users, new people coming to the video world, they are coming to the video, online video streaming world. So interesting how the pandemic make us change, update our forecasts, and how this growth was higher than expected. So you can see there 2020 over the top overtaking pay TV. Then we can look at the consumer behavior or cord cutting, how is cord cutting happening around the world. And we used to say in the beginning, oh, this is a phenomenon in the US. It's not anymore. Cord cutting is happening all around the world, country by country, and many operators. We have here some examples, for example, OSN in the Middle East, or Foxtel in Australia, and how cord cutting is something affecting everyone around the world. And no surprise that content owners, they want to go direct to the consumer. They want to find new source of revenues due to the old models of carriage fees, of partnerships with pay TV operators. Of course, they will still be important. It's not replacing partnerships or relationship with pay TV operators, but content owners also want to go direct to the consumer, creating all set of challenges. I think I mentioned before how to protect that content, how to make sure that that online content now is secure because it's premium, it's valuable, and we don't want that content to be in the hands of pirates or being watched illegally. So lots of challenges as a result of this growth in online content, more than 1 billion subscriptions to online services, thousands and thousands of streaming video services around the world.
Thank you for these slides and the background from a content and consumer perspective. It is always very interesting to keep that in mind. It's not just all about technology, even though technology is the backbone of all of these developments, and it has to be reliable and it has to constantly evolve. It's never finished. Steve, how is your company reacting to those changes and new developments currently taking place?
Yeah, we've actually had a very busy year in terms of products coming out and adapting to the new environments we find ourselves in. I mean, if we sort of think about sort of the content side of the world, we're seeing greater demand for additional sort of data feeds, personalization, better discovery by the consumers, higher levels of QoE. If we think about the sort of providers, how you get to your content, we're seeing security has been called out a few times here, but we're seeing real concerns about being able to protect both access to content and platform, as well as access to the actual content itself and the rights that are wound up with that, in addition to your challenges around application security. And we've seen lots of changes in things like codecs and formats. So we have done a few things that we think are beneficial to our customers in terms of using our services. So first of all, we released a developer central resource, which is a set of resources aimed at enabling people to use our services, understand how they work, and become a better part of their integration and workflow, for example. I think on the next slide from this one, there are some, these are some stats we're seeing. So if we think about on the top right hand here, the ecosystem, the challenge for customers integrating with us is, how do I integrate with your platform and use it well? So we've sort of put a bigger emphasis on our development integration. We've also looked at new services to enable the sort of left-hand side of the workflow from the distribution side to come into us. So we've launched a service called Live Push, which puts the control of the output of all the formats more in control of the user. In a harmonic video, the CDNs come and get the content from someone from the cloud. In this Live Push environment, the content's pushed into the CDN from the cloud, and it helps with customizable workflows. It helps with where the boundaries of control are, and it offers a different way of thinking about that. And then finally, we've also just recently launched a new service, which is a distributed edge computing offering. It offers customers the ability to run their own code in the CDN. It's called Edge Functions. And you can upload your own code that runs, we scale it on demand. And it's used in combination with the CDN to do things like manifest manipulation for watermarking, for example, or advertising insertion, or A/B content selection, or more advanced authentication. So there are lots of pieces there that we're enabling with a new product that the customer has in their hands, that they develop for and they integrate into their publishing workflow. So we've seen a lot of change around how we are integrated back into the video workflow, rather than just thinking that, give us the content and we'll send it forward. There's more happening at the network edge, where we're positioned with our private network across the data centers we occupy around the world. There's a better opportunity now to utilize those locations and resources to improve the workflow and experience.
It's a lot of learning going on, I can see, about the requirements. We have also prepared a video showing more detail about
Excellent.
Limelight Networks.
Thank you for that.
Now, Steve, You mentioned a lot about security and watermarking, for example, as a measurement. Gaia, you with Verimetrics very much involved in security. Gaia, can you perhaps explain a bit more in detail how your company enables the security? We've mentioned watermarking as one of the solutions to protect content and trace pirated content.
Yeah, so watermarking is a technology that has been around for quite a while, but it has not really been much deployed. But lately we have seen really a growing interest of that, and that is from two areas actually. It's live sport, where we have seen several of the distributors now are requiring watermarking. And there are different way of implementing this in a broadcast scenario. Where it's used set-top boxes and let's say protected devices. It's possible to implement watermarking in the chipset, so you can actually identify the chipset where the video is leaking from, and this is made, and identification is done by changing small things in the video, so it's possible to trace down the device that is actually leaking from. In an OTT scenario, it's different, and you either have to do watermarking on the transmitting side, or you can do something on the player. And I think one of the big challenges we see as a security company now is to secure the environment on consumer electronic devices. Because in our traditional broadcast scenario, we have seen that the video is received in a protected environment, but now more and more it is on consumer devices, which is a very unprotected environment. And to create kind of secure environment for consumption of video on consumer electronics devices is something that we really are working a lot on now, and I think that is an important step now to secure the revenue for the content rights holders and content makers. So we are working with them, and maybe then to encrypt and secure the content all the way from where it is produced to where it's consumed, and maybe even put in traceability all the way, so you can see not only where the content is consumed, but also the way it has taken and where it's leaking from. Because the content providers and TV operators are very interested in to understand what is happening with the content after it is actually consumed in the device.
Yes,
so there are tools there, and we are kind of enabling this also as a cloud service. I mean, this pandemic has shown us also that there is a lot of interest of not only purchasing technology, which has been the good old model, but also to purchase security as a service. So that is also something that is enabled now, and we are able to support.
We have a question. What's the most important challenge in the video delivery in the next future? Any of you? The most important challenge?
I mean,
to secure the revenue.
Very good. Yeah, of course. It's all about revenue. But I think, can you say that, Per?
No, I think, well, of course, coming from the live and the sports, I think there's a lot of challenges out there. And when it comes to live OTT, definitely it's been the low latency and synchronized delivery, and to be able to have a more engaging, more interactive viewing experience as to be like a sports fan or any type of live events. That's starting to now be sold, and Net Insight ourselves developed the site platform that we have sold to Amazon for that purpose. But what we realized there is the whole production chain has to be there, whether that's for 360 or VR or for interactivity or following like your player cams. The whole chain has to be there to support this new immersive experiences. So end-to-end solution, I think, is key. And again, the monetization models to support these new experiences. Today it's very traditional in a way. It's more SWOT, AWOT models, but for live, I think it has to develop.
I mean, I think there's a really interesting part in that, which is also going back to, the audience, right? The big challenge in video across all of these things is delighting the audience with consistency. Like we all sort of have grown up in an environment where the experience is pretty consistent across channels, right, in the device that you're using, certainly before OTT, whereas the opportunity for the experience to vary wildly across devices is really the key challenge going forward. And how do we enable the right use of the right compression technology down to the decompression technology? Where is the tie-up and the consistency over time, so that things like adding additional data services or adding additional commentary or being able to personalize part of what I'm watching becomes the real experience that's exciting for the consumer. And the design focus of our industry needs to be sure to look at who is this user, what are they trying to achieve, and what's beneficial for them, in addition to then, of course, the revenue for the rights, the revenue for the content that flows into making new content. But as thinking about complexity of workflow and technology choices is one thing. How does it serve the design needs of the end user, and how can they have this consistent experience is really the challenge. We have educational challenges for our audiences if we have to keep closing schools, or it's better for us for some years to educate people at home. We have to think about how do we design services for those people rather than build around technology. So I think we have a real challenge to make sure we're focused on who is the audience and what do they need from this experience. And sometimes, we get a bit ahead of ourselves. Well, really exciting. Let's use the next greatest piece of, the codec that's come out that's not on any chipset yet. Well, if it's not on the chipset in the handsets, no one's going to be able to decode the video. So we have to think smart, in a smarter way about how we choose which innovation path to follow. And I think that's really important for us as an industry.
And I think you've made a good point here in highlighting that it's important to think about these developments and their implementations from a user perspective, because the core should be a great user experience, easy access to the desired content, and not too much focus on the technology. Technology is important, but it's most important when it's really invisible. And
I mean, you make the technology simple to use, provide platforms that enable people to do things in an open way rather than a proprietary set of pieces. It becomes much more likely that the design for the user becomes the focus. I think that's a challenge for our industry. It has been traditionally. I think it's becoming better with more option for open systems and open platforms, but I think that's the real challenge.
And on the security side, it's definitely a challenge to be able to provide good security without impacting the user experience. So that's really something we focus on to make it what we call a friendly security, because security is something that should be there, but nobody should see. But it's still important.
Yes.
Imagine a passwordless world. Imagine hacker-proof apps. Imagine a city of safe, connected devices. Imagine pirate-free content distribution. Well, now you can. At the edge of trusted technology lies a land of our secure imagination. A land where premium movies are safe. Live streaming sports are safeguarded. Mobile applications are shielded from attacks. And every connected IoT device is secure. We protect what was once only imagined. We are Verimatrix, powering the modern connected world with security made for people.
Wow.
The video. And I just wanted to add that the important thing is, of course, to make content available on as many platforms as possible. And this is, of course, not what makes it easier for the content providers and the companies in the middle, and including, of course, the security providers. But that's just an aspect to consider. We've got another question for Maria. Audience change for tech proposition or for content delivery?
I assume the question is around consumers. You mentioned audience. So to follow up on Steve's point, for the consumer, we saw before that there are thousands and thousands of video streaming services. So the challenge for the consumer is how to find content in this fragmented market when there is so much choice around. How can we find that content? And I have two slides as well here, because many times we ask ourselves, is there a consumer fatigue? Is this tiring for consumers to subscribe to too many video services, pay or free. It's not just a matter of how much money are you prepared to spend. It's also how many passwords are you prepared to remember. So if you have that slide, Andrea, showing our latest consumer survey, where we ask consumers how do they feel about this fragmented market. So here we said, when we talk about pay and free online video services, in the US, people are prepared to pay to take around 10, but in other markets like in UK, Germany, it goes down. So yes, the appetite for video is increasing. The appetite of subscribing for those services is rising. But taking into account, as we said, there are thousands of streaming video services, more than 10, there are thousands. How can we make it easier for subscribers to get access to video services, in particularly to those thematic or niche services? And very important is the role of aggregators. Aggregators can be telcos, it can be pay TV companies, it can be new tech players, Amazon, Roku, Apple, TiVo, it can be new companies. Aggregation is key in order to satisfy the demand for users, in order to provide everything in one place, make things simple. Technology should allow content aggregation to be simple for the end user. If possible, just one bill. If possible, just one search function. You can find all the content you want through just one user interface. So definitely in our consumer surveys, the appetite for video is there. This slide is about pay and free. The next slide will show us how many of those are paid services, around 3 in the US, more than 2 in other countries. So fragmented market, loss of choice. Let's make things simple to the user. Let's hope all these tech companies here in the panel and others make this content available in a friendly, user-friendly way for the users, because yes, they're willing to subscribe, they're willing to pay, but if they cannot find the content they want, they will churn very quickly as well. Churn is very high in online services. So if we don't make things easier, if they cannot find the content they want, they will churn.
So Maria, is there an end to this trend? Has saturation been reached, or is the growth going to continue?
The growth will continue, but of course, what will continue as well will be the role of the aggregators, because not every online service can go directly to the consumer without partnership with a big aggregator. So although we still see growth, the number of SBOTs or SBOTs and eBOTs per home will increase. Yes, the role of the aggregator will be more important than ever, because there is a lot of choice already. We know many online streaming video services have already failed or collapsed. So rather than speaking about streaming wars, I will speak about friendships, partnerships. People need to partner with each other. There's no point to speak about wars, because if you fight against each other, you will not succeed. So critical word, partnerships, aggregation, and security, of course, reduce piracy, because again, with social media, when a content becomes available in a country, everyone wants to watch that piece of content.
Yeah, very good point, Maria. There's just too many players in this industry to fight each other. In order to succeed, they should more think about uniting and making access as simple as possible to consumers.
Correct.
Just very quickly, going over to another major player in this industry, Net Insight. How does your company react to the challenges? And maybe let's first look at the video explaining Net Insight's role in this industry. So, yeah, how does that Insight tackle the challenges?
As I said, it's been a challenging year for any sports fans out there. But and also I think in when it comes to live sports, we always say content is king, and I think it's more true in live sports than anywhere else, where people are paying enormous sums for the rights to the big leagues and to the big live sports events. This tradition has meant that quality and reliability has been the key words, and perhaps also the steps to new technology has taken longer time, but we see a huge transformation happening in the whole value chain, so from the production to the delivery, moving to more open IP and cloud-based technologies. But as I said, I think really the end-to-end workflows are the key ones to create and partnerships to create that end-to-end solutions. And another thing we see is, and of course, said we also need more agile production workflow. I think a good example, we had a Swedish commentator sitting in Spain. He couldn't travel back to Sweden for his work, so we use cloud technology to connect him up in his home, and he was sitting at home, commentating. I think it was Italian football, for a Swedish broadcaster in Spain.
Very good example. Let's move the discussion towards the question whether everything will go into the cloud and on CDN-based services, or is there still a role for the old technology, Karin, the satellite? We briefly mentioned that in the beginning. Is there still a role for satellite, or is everything going to go into the cloud?
No, of course, satellite is still a big market and a fantastic technology, but I think I cannot be more than agree of the fact that content is very, very important, and personalization is important, monetization of the content, and what we see in this slide is what is currently in place and what is used by our customer. The fact that with the cloud you can easily feed your sources from different location, and you can build a channel and you can prepare the channel for different affiliates. But then you can go the slide after. The next slide. On the next slide, what you will see is that what is now in place for our customer in the US, where what is important is to have one channel per user. So Maria, when you were mentioning that what is important is the content and the user, and to be able to address properly the user. And I think the technology is there. It's quite easy now to have a regional channel with the targeted ad. So you can have your own channel, my channel for Karin Rischker. But I think what is important is a partnership between the content provider. And really the technology is there. So I think we have to educate the marketing of our customers and to give them a lot of idea to build new services for end users.
Yeah. So you mentioned personalization, individual media consumption as keywords, and of course as one of the benefits of CDNs and cloud-based delivery. But what about the other participants? Do you think that the satellite is outdated because it just can't keep up with all of these new developments, or is there still a role for the satellite?
The satellite is still quite efficient to get the content quickly out to many people. So yeah, I think it still has a role for quite some time.
Yeah.
But of course.
Okay. Do you all agree?
Yeah, I think it occupies a specific spot in the end-to-end distribution chain. And if you think about distribution across regions and licensing and so on, I think it occupies an important part of the chain. It may not be where we've been talking about, is more in the perhaps local or regional distribution towards the end user after the point of creation. Certainly some of the technologies here have multiple points of insertion, but I think satellite will continue to have a part to play. How we deal with what we get from the satellite after the point of downlink, and then how does that get distributed to the end user? And to the point on the slide just now, how do you do the regional ad insertion to make it relevant for the user? That level of integration in the workflow will have to happen, but the satellite piece will still be important for sure.
Let's focus on the user perspective again, because there's a remark by a viewer. And of course, as I said earlier, we shouldn't forget that the consumer is there to benefit, the technology is there to benefit the consumers. So can you mention some of the benefits, the new user experiences, the new opportunities that come up with all the changes taking place in the background to have a even better and improved content consumption and new ways to consume the content in a much more compelling way?
Yeah, okay. I mean, Per made a point earlier about synchronization, which is key. If you think about the user and the experience we're used to, and what happens when you have multiple options for the same view available, and do you switch between them quickly enough? That type of design for the end user, and thinking about what am I doing when I'm pressing a button, or when I'm tapping a link, or interacting with my screen in some way. What's the feedback there? Is it instant enough? That's one piece. If it's a data feed, how is it overlaid? How is it incorporated into the overall user experience? And does it impact or affect the video, on a big screen versus a small screen? If you have options for different audio channels for, stadium noise or referee microphone versus just the commentator, how does that come into play for you as a user, and does it follow you across devices? Those type of innovations, have some challenge for us in the workflow, fair enough. They also have significant challenge in the app design, the integration point there. How does that become simple to use? So I think there's a lot of activity, trying to introduce additional pieces of content around a live event, or around a piece of VOD content that makes it more interesting to interact with. And I think the real challenge is making the user, both obvious to the user how to use it, and make the experience of using it, enjoyable, so they do it again.
Yes, and I think Maria mentioned something important earlier on with the aggregation, and we're seeing that happening more and more. This morning, Swisscom in Switzerland announced they're going to bundle everything from TV to cinema to pay TV, Netflix, Amazon, Sky into one platform called Blue. And I think we're going to see that more and more, to the benefit of the consumers. That technology goes more and more into the background, different subscription models going all into one subscription, one overall content delivery proposition. Maria, do you agree?
100%. So we're talking a lot about video, but yes, the future will be aggregation, not just video, games, music, audio, podcasts. The consumer wants everything in one place, make life easier for the consumer, offer everything in just one place, one bill, one user interface. So those who manage to aggregate all this type of content, as I said, not just video, audio, games, even cinema, all in one place, those will be the winners. Obviously, in order this to succeed as well, we need connectivity, we need reliable broadband, reliable mobile, which in many countries is still a challenge. So again, don't underestimate the importance of good, reliable connectivity, broadband, mobile. Many times, even doing panels like this, you can see people having challenges even to connect to a video call. So do not underestimate the importance of connectivity in the online world. We take it for granted, but many areas, many people still face challenges with the basic one, that is connectivity at home.
But Maria,
can
I ask, because the other trend we also see, especially when it comes to live, and I guess now with Disney Channel, it's a good example that, it's the aggregators are there, and yes, consumer wants everything in one place, but at the same time, they also want to specialize. And we see the content owners going, they're bypassing the aggregators and going direct more and more.
Especially in sports, if we aggregate it so much, so if different players have different pieces of that sports, if someone has the football, another one has basketball, if someone has Formula 1, and you're a sports fan that you want to watch it all, are you going to subscribe to 3 sports streaming services, or are you going to subscribe to one and maybe watch illegally the other 2 because you think the market is too fragmented, you think it's not fair for the end user that in order to watch 3 sports, you have to subscribe to 3 different online streaming services. So that's what I'm saying.
And this was interesting what Steve said also about synchronization, and I think we spoke to a couple of the big when we did this low latency synchronized delivery to really synchronize your OTT stream to your more SOFA experience on the primary distribution, and then you could have additional content like players cams and things that were synchronized to what you see on the big screen.
Correct, complementary to what you are watching. Yeah,
and that creates exactly complementary also monetization models for the content owners.
Yeah, because people, it's something very important, the SOFA. People want to watch the content in the big screen. Yes, they're using mobiles, tablets, PCs, and other devices, but premium content, especially, people want to watch it in the big screen. So there is a massive growth in smart TVs. It's one of the devices that is growing the most because people want to watch content, premium content in the big screen. And yes, they may use other devices as a complement to what they're watching, but we should never forget that the smart TV is king now, and that good user experience is critical. And again, speaking about partnerships, if you're a content provider, you have to partner not just with a pay TV, with a telco. You also need to speak to smart TV companies, Samsung, LG, Panasonic. Again, device partnerships, another key trend, another thing we have been focusing a lot in our consumer surveys. Which devices people have at home, which are the top brands. So this can be the material for another panel, another presentation around who are the leaders, not in the pay TV telco space, in the devices space, those companies that everyone should speak to if they want to partner, if they want to be in as many devices as possible.
I think
Sorry.
Yeah, just on the content, I think we are talking about aggregation and premium content, but I think just to finish on the cloud and CDN, that allows also to distribute content that are not distributed today. Like for example, Roland Garros in Brazil will be distributed directly with cloud plus CDN. So I think that is also the beauty of the cloud and the new technology to enable to give access to sport content, especially that are not distributed today by a premium broadcaster.
Well, and we're also seeing an enormous change in this year and real demand for help from services that are distributing educational information. So, I'm sure we've all experienced, our children doing homeschooling on a Zoom call that doesn't quite work or whatever. The real challenge of distributing, subject matter and syllabus well, and sort of class environment, and the video element of that is a really important part. So we've seen a lot of perhaps obviously at this point in time, but we've seen a lot of change in that industry or that part of the ecosystem where there's a real need for easy, simple, fast access to services. The technology may be complicated, but what they're looking for is the abstraction of that. So the software as a service piece coming into play. And I think the real change that's coming technologically is the move from being cloud-centric. The cloud isn't going to go away, but there's cloud centricity, and then there's sort of the distribution edge or the network edge around that, where parts of the workflows are going to be deployed for regional use, for data sovereignty reasons, and for local delivery, where it's more important for local access to be localized than to be cloud-centric. So we're going to see a change to a distributed model.
Thank you. And these are very good last words from you, Steve. I think they are something we can all associate with. It should be easy, it should be simple, and content should be there to benefit consumers. Thank you very much to all the panelists. Thank you to Karine from Harmonic. Thank you to Maria from Omdia. Thank you to Steve from Limelight. Thank you to Gaia from Verimatrix. And thank you to Per from Net Insight. Thanks for having this discussion. See you soon. Goodbye.
Another
Let's take a closer look at this in operation.
We have launched 2 VOS 360 instances, one on Google Cloud and one on Azure. Both instances are receiving the same live signal through Harmonic's secure, redundant CloudLink servers. And each instance is performing the same transcoding, encryption, packaging, and origin operations. A graphic is inserted for each instance so that we can easily identify which cloud the streams are coming from. Now we add dual CDN distribution to maximize availability. Under normal conditions, a user connected through Akamai will receive the Azure VOS 360 program, and the user connected through Limelight will receive the Google Cloud VOS 360 program.
The system will not always run perfectly. Let's see what happens if there is a failure somewhere in the system.
We shut down the Azure VOS 360 instance to simulate some form of dramatic failure. Both CDNs now start automatically pulling all segments from the remaining instance. Meanwhile, the end-user video keeps playing seamlessly. We can also switch back and forth between public clouds as well as running with both in parallel. As you can see, CDN, or cloud failover, is completely transparent for the end user.